But the harsh truth is that religious hostility and intolerance between as well as within religions is contributing to violent crises and political impasse all across the world. In the Central African Republic, in South Sudan, in Nigeria, in Myanmar, in the Philippines, and in the Ukraine, and in many other places. Such hostilities, of course, represent the most sinister side of what I have described as the centrifugal, fragmenting patterns of our times. So then, how can we respond to such tendencies? The response I would emphasize today is a thoughtful, renewed commitment to the concept of pluralism and to the closely related potential of civil society. A pluralist commitment is rooted in the essential unity of the human race. Does the Holy Quran not say that mankind is descended from a single soul? In an increasingly cosmopolitan world, it is essential that we live by a cosmopolitan ethic, one that addresses the age-old need to balance the particular and the universal, to honor both human rights and social duties, to advance personal freedom and to accept human responsibility. It is in that spirit that we can nurture bonds of confidence across different peoples and unique individuals, welcoming the growing diversity of our world, even in matters of faith, as a gift of the divine. Difference in this context can become an opportunity, not a threat, a blessing rather than a burden. This brings us to the challenges of governance in our time. How do we organize our complex societies to achieve harmony and coherence and progress, even at this time of growing diversity? These have always been difficult questions, and they're not getting any easier. As you know, they were particularly difficult questions for the United States. Back in this university's earliest years, as 13 former colonies tried to write a new national constitution. George Washington, who had presided over the Constitutional Convention, came to this campus in 1790, after just 1 year as president, when Brown itself was only a quarter of a century old. He traveled to Providence to mark the recent adoption of the new U.S. Constitution by the state of Rhode Island, the last of the original 13 states to do so. His visit was to celebrate the completion of that constitution writing process. You may have known about this from reading the plaque that still hangs on the wall of University Hall, on the brown main green, where Washington strolled that day with the university's president. I'm told incidentally that Washington was greeted here with the roar of cannons and the ringing of bells and a spirit of great decorum. I don't know about the cannon and the bells, but I must testify as a current university guest that the great decorum has not changed at all. Thank you. Washington's visit in Providence marked a moment of historic constitutional significance. And the questions we have raised today, balancing centrifugal, fragmenting realities on the one hand, with the imperatives of national bonding and governing on the other, were central concerns for Washington at that moment and throughout his career. After 8 years of coping with these issues as the first American president, he made them the major theme of his famous farewell address. He was worried principally, he said then, about what he called the spirit of faction and its ability to undermine a sense of democratic nationhood. He described faction as a spirit that kindles the animosity of one part against another, creating a fatal tendency to elevate a small but artful and enterprising minority of the community against the whole. It threatened, he said, a frightful despotism, one that could render alien to each other those who ought to be bound together. Such threats of bonding and thus to balance have long presented a central governance challenge here and elsewhere. And these issues are now being addressed with new intensity all across the world. Amazing as it may seem, fully 37 countries have been writing or rewriting their constitutions in the last 10 years, with another 12 countries recently embarking on this path. This means that nearly 25% of the member countries of the United Nations have been rethinking these central governance concerns. And nearly 49 of these countries have majority Muslim populations. Clearly, many Muslim societies are seeking new ways to organize themselves. And there can be no one-size-fits-all. The outcomes obviously are going to be many and varied. The process will challenge the creativity of the world's best political and legal thinkers. Especially in the developing world, such matters will increasingly be in the hands of younger, more educated men and women, provided the system allows them to come to the forefront. These governance issues are frankly today of global concern. And I believe that the great universities of the world, and Brown University in particular, can also play an especially creative role in responding to them. The challenge, as we have said, will be one of balancing values and interests, honoring the importance of religious and ethical traditions, for example, while also respecting the free will of individual human beings, accommodating both the role of central governments and regional demands, reconciling the urban and the rural, providing for democratic change and institutional continuity. Creating new governance frameworks is obviously not an easy task, but it can be accomplished. In Kenya, just 3.5 years ago, for example, a new constitution ratified by 2/3 of the voters redistributed power dramatically from the central level to 47 county governments. In Tunisia, just a few weeks ago, a new consensus constitution with 94% approval from the elected Constituency Assembly reaffirmed the Islamic identity of the Tunisian state while also protecting the human rights of religious and ethnic minorities. In these cases, and in other places such as Bangladesh, one of the fundamental constructive forces at work has been the strength of civil society. It is a topic that is worth serious attention. And I'm happy to say that it has been getting increasing attention, including the exemplary cutting-edge work here at Brown of the Watson Institute for International Studies. By civil society, I mean an array of institutions that operate on a private, voluntary basis, but are motivated by high public purposes. They include institutions devoted to culture, to science, and to research, to commercial, labor, ethnic, and religious concerns, as well as a variety of professional societies. They include institutions of the media and education. I think the conclusion is that the success of democratic societies will depend in the end on more than democratic governments. The scale and the quality of civil society will become a factor, I believe, of enormous importance. A quality civil society has three critical underpinnings: a commitment to pluralism, an open door to meritocracy, and a full embrace of what I described earlier as a cosmopolitan ethic. The voices of civil society will reflect and express the growing complexity of society, not as autonomous fragments, but as diversified institutions seeking the common good. And I believe that the voices of civil society can be among the most powerful forces in our time. Where change has been overdue, they can be voices for change. Where people live in fear, they can be voices of hope. And one of the energizing forces that makes a quality civil society possible, of course, is the readiness of its citizens to contribute their talents and energies to the social good. What is required is a profound spirit of voluntary service, a principle cherished in Shia Ismaili culture and honored, I know, here at Brown. And progress is possible when the multiple diversity needs of any society can be matched by the multiple diversified inputs. That is also what civil society is all about. This is why great universities, with their broad, diversified programs, can be a resource of importance to the development of quality civil society in their own countries, but also around the world. And again, Brown offers a powerful example. Perhaps the biggest quandary we face in our economic and social development is the problem of predictability, knowing what changes are going to arise, and then deciding what is more or less likely to work in a given situation. But again, progress is possible when complex issues are subjected to competent, intelligent, nuanced, and sophisticated analysis, free from dogmatism, and based upon what I would describe as empathetic knowledge. This happens best in open meritocratic societies, where people's responsibilities are based on their competence. It also happens best when the intellectual resources of the world's great universities like Brown are brought into play. One of the important values of the Shia Ismaili tradition is the transformative power of the human intellect. That conviction underscores AKDN's strong commitment to education at all levels, wherever we are present. These activities include the Aga Khan University, now 30 years old, our newer University of Central Asia, our Aga Khan academies at the primary and secondary levels, and our major commitment to the potential of early childhood development. The Aga Khan University in Karachi and in East Africa is in the process today of creating a new liberal arts faculty, while also establishing 8 new postgraduate schools. I would emphasize both these initiatives. Professional education is sorely needed in the developing world, but equally important is the capacity to integrate knowledge, to nurture critical thinking and ethical sensitivity, and to advance interdisciplinary teaching and research. A quality civil society in any sitting will require well-informed leaders who are sensitive to a wide array of disciplines and outlooks and cultures. It will require people with the ability to continue their learning in response to knowledge. And I know again that these are central concerns for Brown University, articulated so well in its new strategic plan and its call for building on distinction. As we look ahead in sum, we face a world in which centrifugal and fragmenting influences are of growing importance, presenting new governance challenges all across the planet, and especially in fragile societies. In such a world, the voices of pluralistic civil society can help ensure that diversity does not lead to disintegration, and that a broad variety of energies and talents can be enlisted in the quest for human progress. Diversification without disintegration, this is the greatest challenge of our time.
Like, share, and subscribe. Click that notification button and check us out on social media. Links are in the description below.